Let's dive into 10 hilarious coups from history before 1800. 1. Rome's revolving throne, the year of 4 emperors, 69 CE. If ancient Rome had HR, they'd have filed a complaint for whiplash. In the year 69 CE, 4 different emperors wore the crown: Galba, Otho, Vitellius, and Vespasian. And none of them lasted long enough to redecorate the palace. Galba got assassinated by the Praetorian Guard. Otho overthrew Galba, ruled for 90 days, then offed himself to avoid fighting Vitellius. Vitellius marched in, took over, and was immediately hunted down by Vespasian's troops, who pulled him from a latrine and killed him in public. Vespasian finally stabilized the empire, but not before the entire Roman Senate had to reprint its letterhead multiple times. This wasn't an orderly succession. It was a royal game of musical chairs, and the music was set to gladiator screams, a masterclass in how not to run an empire. Second, Empress Wu's bedroom chess game, China's only female emperor, 690 CE. Empress Wu Zetian didn't seize power overnight. She dismantled it piece by piece, with the patience of a grandmaster and the energy of a soap opera villain. First, she allegedly framed the sitting empress for murdering her own baby, a baby that Wu probably planted herself. From there, she removed rivals one at a time, promoted her loyalists, and made Buddhism her PR machine. Eventually, she booted her own sons off the throne and declared herself emperor, the only woman in Chinese history to do it solo. Critics accused her of everything from poisoning princes to having secret boyfriends in her Buddhist bell tower. And yet, she ruled for 15 years and kept the empire together better than most of the men. Was it scandalous? Yes. Was it effective? Also, yes. And possibly the only coup that came with incense, poetry, and a body count. The dinner coup. Caliph Al-Mutawakkil's Last Supper, 861 CE. The Abbasid Caliph Al-Mutawakkil had trust issues, and for good reason. In 861, he sat down to dinner with his son and his favorite servant. Problem was, his Turkish guards were fed up with his tyranny, so they did what any passive-aggressive military unit might do. They enlisted the wine pourer. While the caliph sipped his drink, the servant held him in place while the assassins stabbed him to death between courses. Then they immediately installed his son, who may or may not have helped plan the whole thing. It was the kind of coup where the dessert cart rolled out before the blood was cleaned off the carpets. Nothing says smooth transition of power like a government change as the main entree. 4. England's most awkward uncle, Richard III and the Missing Princes, 1483. Edward IV dies. His 12-year-old son, Edward V, is supposed to be king. Instead, Uncle Richard swoops in, says the kids need protection, and locks them in the Tower of London. They vanish without a trace. Richard declares them illegitimate, crowns himself king, and pretends nothing weird happened. For a while, it worked, but public suspicions simmered. Whispers grew, and eventually Richard lost both the throne and his horse at Bosworth Field. This is the only coup in history where the usurper's entire defense was, "What missing children?" The princes became historical legends. Richard became a Shakespeare villain, and England got a royal mystery that still hasn't been solved. You could call it a hostile takeover, or a medieval family reunion gone horribly wrong. 5. The queen who fired herself. Christina of Sweden's voluntary coup, 1654. Queen Christina of Sweden ruled like a boss, and then abdicated like a Broadway diva. She never wanted to marry, hated court life, and once said,
"I am not made to be a wife." No way!
So she staged a coup against herself, sort of. She pressured Parliament to let her quit, then gave an emotional speech, threw off her crown mid-ceremony, and rode off into the sunset, literally. She moved to Rome, converted to Catholicism, dressed like a man half the time, and befriended artists, philosophers, and popes. Sweden, meanwhile, calmly installed her cousin without much fuss. The entire event was less bloodbath and more personality reboot. It might be the only coup in history that ended with wine, travel, and better outfits. 6. Napoleon's first stumble, the 18 Brumaire coup, 1799, France. Napoleon's first grab for power wasn't exactly smooth. In 1799, he and his buddies staged a constitutional correction called the Coup of 18 Brumaire. He walked into the legislative chambers to deliver a speech, but instead of inspiring support, he stammered, flailed, and was nearly thrown out. His brother had to save him by yelling,
"The Jacobins are coming."
which wasn't true. Soldiers stormed in, kicked out the lawmakers, and rewrote the rules. Napoleon became first consul within days. It was a comedy of errors, saved only by brute force and mediocre acting. France exchanged democracy for dictatorship, with a shrug and a new calendar. Literally, Brumaire was part of the revolutionary calendar. Even the dates were dramatic. 7. Catherine the Great's coup de marriage, 1762, Russia. Catherine the Great didn't wait for permission, she waited for timing. Her husband, Tsar Peter III, was universally hated. So while he fumbled foreign policy and played soldier dress-up, Catherine quietly built a coalition with nobles, clergy, and the army. Then, while Peter was off playing war games, she rode into St. Petersburg in full military uniform, declared herself ruler, and made it stick. Peter was forced to abdicate, and then mysteriously died a few days later. Catherine claimed it was an accident. Everyone else nodded politely and never brought it up again. She ruled for over 30 years, modernized Russia, and kept lovers in rotation like state appointments. Not bad for someone who entered the country as a teenage princess with no power, just ambition and an excellent poker face. 8. The 13-Day Shogun, Japan's Honnō-ji Incident, 1582. Oda Nobunaga was on his way to unifying Japan. Then he checked into a temple. His general, Akechi Mitsuhide, decided this was the perfect time for betrayal. He surrounded the temple, caught Nobunaga in his sleeping robes, and forced him to commit ritual self-unaliving, seppuku, as the building burned. Mitsuhide declared himself ruler, then lasted 13 days before another general crushed him in battle. The whole thing was so fast, historians barely had time to write it down. It's the samurai version of, "Congratulations on your promotion, please clean out your desk." Dramatic, bloody, and over before the incense stopped burning. 9. The pharaoh who said nah, Hatshepsut's power move, circa 1478 BCE. Hatshepsut was supposed to rule temporarily as regent for her stepson, Thutmose III. Instead, she kept the throne like it was store credit. She declared herself pharaoh, wore the royal beard, and had statues made of her in full king regalia. For 2 decades, she ruled with stability, built magnificent temples, and ran Egypt better than most of the dudes before her. Meanwhile, her stepson waited awkwardly in the wings, probably wondering if he was grounded for life. After she died, Thutmose tried to erase her from history by smashing her statues and scratching out her name. But we still remember her, because if you're going to stage a coup, you might as well make it art. 10. The king who copped a coup 5 times, Gustavus III of Sweden, 1772. Sweden's Gustavus III really wanted more power. Parliament kept blocking his reforms, so he tried to stage a coup. It didn't take, so he tried again, and again. By attempt number 5, he just marched into Parliament with the military and said,
"I'm the king. I do king things now."
The legislators were so tired and confused, they passed his new constitution within hours. Some clapped. One guy fainted. Gustavus called it restoring order. Everyone else called it, fine, whatever, just stop already. It was the IKEA of coups. Took forever to assemble, but eventually it worked. So the next time you hear about a modern-day power grab, just remember, coups have always been messy. Whether it's wine-soaked assassinations, missing royal nephews, or emperors who couldn't finish a speech, history's power plays are as awkward as they are dramatic. Some were deadly, some were genius, and some, honestly, just kind of funny. Thanks for watching through to the end. Stick around if you'd like to see more hilarious history, as we uncover even more hidden history dorks.